Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. As you can see in the background here, we have a very intense face-off from the Joseph Parker vs Anthony Joshua press conference which has been held. So this is the first of a couple that will be held in this build-up. Got to say though that this press conference in general, given all the talk to this point, I was half expecting a display of fireworks, absolute fire, but instead we barely got a few sparklers. But that doesn't mean it was any less interesting, and there's a few things that I want to get into really quickly. So let's start with the absence of trash talk, or really any bullish statements overall. Parker, he was sitting quietly for the most part, and when it was his turn to talk, he was all business, expressing confidence in his ability to train hard and win. It was reminiscent, I feel, of the Joseph Parker that we usually see, the one that's at press conferences, the humble guy sometimes referred to as Gentleman Joe by New Zealand media. And we know that Joseph Parker isn't exactly suited to the trash talk game. But he didn't even wheel out, and this is something I was really expecting, one-liners like, "I'm going to smash Anthony Joshua's glass chin to bits," which is something he had said repeatedly in recent days. And David Higgins, and this is perhaps more surprising, he's Joseph Parker's promoter, you might have expected that he would fill that void, given that's more his sphere, the trash-talking game. It's not his fighter's forte, and he generally in the past has sort of stepped in and he will say a few things, get a few jibes out. But surprisingly, he, like Parker, he kept things in first gear most of the way. He actually even pulled back on a few things. He explained he doesn't think Anthony Joshua is mentally weak, just mentally weaker than Joseph Parker. He also surprisingly said of Joshua, "We're not saying he's got a glass chin." And just let that one sink in. That's actually been a key plank of David Higgins' arguments in recent months on how Joseph Parker beats Anthony Joshua. So naturally, Eddie Hearn, he was all over that like white on rice, jumping on Higgins, saying, trying to hold him to account for his recent statements. He even referenced that, he was only now 5 feet away from Joshua, so say it. Say what he's been saying. I mean, it was clear Eddie Hearn has been letting Higgins run his mouth in recent weeks or months, largely unchecked, so he can have a bit of fodder to work with when he needed to. And Higgins offered it up today, and he certainly wanted Higgins to say it to Joshua's face. But he was rather circumspect and had pulled back from the sort of well-worn, the well-stated lines that have been run. I mean, the change of tact from this relentless sort of jibing towards Anthony Joshua, it was stark. And it's left me wondering, why was it jettisoned for this press conference? I mean, some of the recent interest in this fight can be directly attributed to the strategy that Higgins and Parker have employed in recent weeks, social media, getting in the media, saying things about the glass chin and whatnot, different stunts that they have done. And I'm sure it's probably left a number of fans like you and me a little bit confused about why these brash New Zealanders have all of a sudden become shrinking violets. This was effectively the biggest stage. I mean, there was apparently going to be hundreds of media there, up to 400 media it had been reported. So this was a big event, and there had been no shortage of words said in recent days and weeks, but then today, it all got put away in the pocket with Anthony Joshua in the room. Very interesting. What do you make of that? For his part, though, Anthony Joshua, he largely stuck to his usual script of things that you'd expect him to say. No man can beat me, it's going to be a tough challenge, all that sort of stuff. But he was definitely keen to press 2 points. The first being about his perceived glass chin. He specifically detailed he's only been hurt 3 times. Not half a dozen or more, as has been alleged. So David Price in sparring years ago and at the European Championships when he was also an amateur. And then obviously there was Vladimir Klitschko where he hit the mat. So the first 2, he explained the actual circumstances behind it, that there were some personal circumstances in his life that led to him not being properly prepared for being in the ring at those times. I was a little surprised, I must say, that he felt the need to go into any detail at all. So this sort of campaign, this relentless campaign from Team Parker, it's clearly drawn him out on this one and forced him into a position where he feels he needs to set the record straight. And Joshua's trainer, Rob McCracken, he's been with Joshua all the way through. He spoke about the 2 instances when Joshua was hurt earlier in his career, and he described everything else that's rumoured to have happened in sparring to be untrue and fake news. So I don't know where that leaves David Higgins' so-called fact-based campaign. But Anthony Joshua, he did reference his experiences of having been knocked down to make a point. Check this out.
It's all good. I've defeated champions. I've faced Olympic champions. So what Parker will see and who you say he is, I feel that he'll be looking at the mirror, because across the room will be someone just like him. Another world champion, another undefeated champion who's mentally tough, with speed, that can take a punch. And if he does take a punch, there's 2 types of people who take a punch. One who gets put down and stays down. Or would you hate to fight the one who gets put down and gets up and keeps on coming? And that's who he's dealing with, really. So he'll be facing someone who he sees every day in the gym, who his coach sees every day in the gym, to reflect in the other corner. So that's what I think will make it a great fight.
Anthony Joshua, he is very confident heading into this unification, and he believes he is the one that is mentally strong, and that he's actually proven he's mentally strong from his history in the ring and things that he's come through. So that was something that he was wanting to impress upon people. And his trainer, Rob McCracken, he echoed these sentiments. And he also stated, Joshua will be far too good for Parker. While rival trainer Kevin Barry, he stated Joseph Parker, he needs a career-defining fight. This is that fight. And he has to be at his best, otherwise it will be a long night. And I agree on that front. Interestingly, though, Joshua at the end, he did say that he does respect Team Parker, and he hopes that at the end of the fight, he can shake their hand. So a little bit of a pullback there from the no-shake comments from when the unification was announced, but I think most of us probably expected that sort of talk would end up prevailing in the end, and we'd see something after the fight, whoever wins. So while it may not have been the tetchy presser that we thought it might be, it was certainly interesting, and it was absorbing, and it raised a few questions about what we can expect next. I was left wondering, though, the whole Duco sort of pulling back from their aggressive stance on saying things like Anthony Joshua's got a glass chin, it just sort of evaporated. And I wasn't quite sure why. But, I mean, maybe it was because he was in the room. Maybe they thought, actually, we've done the promotional sell that we needed to. We got the fight over the line, and now we can sort of go back to Operation Normal. Who knows? What do you make of it? It does sort of seem to be quite a shift there. And just on tickets, some details, see this tweet on screen, have now been released. So what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.